Okay, so let's continue to look at our fairness criterion. The next one is the majority criterion. If a choice has a majority of first place votes, that choice should be the winner. Now remember, a majority is over 50% of the votes, and that makes sense. If more than 50% of people want that candidate should win. Okay, so we're going to use the border count method. So let's use the border count method to see who wins this election. All right, so using boredom, since S is the top one here in the first row and column, we'll just start with S's border count. We could do them in any order we wanted to, in alphabetical order if we wanted to, but we'll just start with that one. All right, so S is first. Now remember, with the border count, we're going to go, all right, this one gets 4 points. This one will get 3 points. This one will get 2 points. And then fourth place will get 1 point. All right, so for the 51 people who voted for S first, they will get 4 points there. And for the 25 people in the next column, let's notice S is last, so it only gets 1 point. And for this one, again, S is last, so it only gets 1 point. And then finally, for these 14, S is last, so it only gets 1 point. And let's add those up, and that's 253. All right, so let's go to T. And it doesn't really matter what order. Let me get my dog. Maybe she stopped. All right, so 51. And let's notice T is in second place, so that's 3 points. 25, T is in first place, so that's 4 points. For the 10, T is in second place, so that's 3 points. And finally, for the 14, T is in second place, so that's 3 points. And let's add that up. That gives a count of 325. All right, so now let's go to O. For the 51, O is in third place, which is 2 points. For the 25, O is in third place, which is 2 points. For the 10, O is in third place, which is 2 points. And for the 14, O is in first place, so that's 4 points. Now let's add that up, and that gives 228. And then lastly, let's do our P. So our P is in last place for the 51, it gets 1 point. In our second column, P is second, so it gets 3 points for those 25. Oops. For the column with 10, P is in first place, so it gets 4. And for the column with 14, P is third, so it gets 2. And then let's add those up. And that gives 194. Now let's just double check our calculations, especially since that 325 seems a lot higher than the others. Okay, so T is going to win according to our board account, but let's double check and let's remember how to do that. We want to add up all of our votes. And if we add up all of the votes, there are actually 100 votes up there. And then add up our 4, our 3, our 2, and a 1, which is 10. So really, when we add up the board account, all of these together should add up to 1,000. So let's just check that. And if I put 253 plus 325 plus 228 plus 194 in my calculator, it does add up to 1,000. So I know that I've done things correctly. All right, so by the board account, T wins. All right, but let's remember that a majority is over 50%. Okay, since we have 100 voters, anyone with 51 or more votes is going to be a majority. So a majority will be more than half. So half of our 100 voters would be 50, more than half will be 51. Okay, so let's do plurality here, and let's notice that S would get 51 votes. That's a majority. if we did plurality. If we look right here, S would get 51. So S should win, but by the board account, T wins. So this violated the majority criterion, and our board account can violate that majority criterion, and that's one of the problems with it. So let's look at our last fairness criterion, the independence of irrelevant alternatives criterion. If a non-winning choice is removed from the ballot, it should not change the winner of the election. Equivalently, if choice A is preferred over choice B, introducing or removing a choice C should not cause B to be preferred over A. Okay, so let's take a look at this preference ballot here, this preference table rather, and determine the winner using Copeland's method, using pairwise comparisons. So we're going to compare everybody. We'll start with A versus B just to be nice and systematic. All right, so A and B. All right, so if we look at these 5, A is preferred, so A will get those 5. Then if we look over here, A is preferred, so A will get these 5. And here, B is preferred, so B will get those 6. And B is preferred here, so it will get those 4. And we have, looks like a tie between A and B. And remember, in a tie, both get half. So a tie, A and B get 1/2 point here. All right, well, let's go on to A versus C. All right, so in the first column, A is preferred over C, so it gets those 5. A is definitely preferred in the second column. In the third column, C is preferred, so C gets those. And in the fourth column, A is preferred. So we can see that A's got 14, so A wins. And A gets 1 point. All right, now let's do A versus D. All right, so in this first column, D is preferred, so D is going to get the first 5. A is preferred in the second column, so A will get the second 5. In this column, D is preferred, so D will get 6. And in this last column, D is still preferred, so D will get 4. All right, so clearly D wins this one. So D wins, D gets 1 point. All right, so let's continue. We've done A with everybody. Let's now do B. And let me keep us still here. So let's do, now we've already done B with A, so let's do B. Oops, that takes me off the page. So let me go up here and I'll just go out to the side here. And we'll do B versus C. All right, so B and C. All right, so B versus C. Well, let's notice C is preferred in this first column, so C gets the first 5. C is also preferred in the second column. C is also preferred in the third column. We can see that C wins already at this point because it has more than half, but B does get the last 4. All right, so C wins. C gets 1 point. All right, so now let's do B versus D. Oops. B versus D. All right, so B and D. Well, let's see. D certainly gets these first 5. In the second column, B is preferred to D, so B gets these. In the third column, B is preferred to D. That's more than half, so B is going to win. And of course, B gets that last column, so B wins. And B gets 1 point. All right, now we've done B with everybody. Let's now do C with everybody. We've done C with A, we've done C with B, so we really just need to do our final comparison will be C and D. All right, so I don't know what that is. Let's get blocks. All right, so C and D. Well, let's notice D gets these first 5. C is preferred to D in the second column, so C gets the next 5. C is also preferred to D in the third column, which is going to make it the winner since that's the majority. But let's notice that D does get these last 4. So C wins, and C gets 1 point. All right, so let's tally up what we have here. A has a half. A has this one here, so that's 1.5 for A. A gets 1.5 total. And then let's look at B. Let's see. B's only getting a half point here and 1 point here, so B gets 1.5. And then C, let's see. C gets 1 here and 1 here, so C gets 2. And then finally D only won this one, so it gets 1. So D gets 1. All right, so C wins by the head-to-head count. Now, let's notice that D was in last. So removing D from the race shouldn't change the fact that C wins. But we're going to take a look at what happens when we remove D from the race. All right, so removing D, let's start with A versus B. Let's notice A gets these 5. A gets the second 5. B gets 6. And B gets these 4. Now again, we have a tie between A and B. So I'm just going to say tie here. You're going to get half each, but let's go to A versus C. A gets the first 5. A gets the second 5. C gets 6 here. And A gets these last 4. So A wins. So our last comparison is B versus C. Well, let's notice C gets the first 5. C gets the second 5. C gets the next 6, and B gets the last 4. And so C wins. Now, however, notice that A has 1.5 votes, B has a half a vote, and C has 1 point. So C did not win this time, A did. All right, so that's a violation of our independence of irrelevant alternatives criterion. We removed a losing candidate from the ballots, and somehow C didn't win anymore, A did.